Every step towards your goals requires sacrifice, suffering, struggle, and tireless exertions of passionate action. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. The steps to becoming great are not giant leaps, but small steps of moving forward each moment. Life is a long road, so we stay focused, we stay hopeful, and we keep moving forward. There's a reason the windshield is so much larger than the rearview mirror. The longer we keep looking back, we don't just miss what's ahead, but the road ahead can become more dangerous than the one behind. The most important thing we can do is respond to everything in life with a resolve to learn and be better than we were the moment before. We believe that progress is greater than perfection, that becoming is greater than being, and that we'll become greater by moving always forward.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the podcast, episode 2, Always Forward. Keep moving on.
Keep moving forward. How's it going, Phil?
Doing good, Jameson. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm tired of the rain, but I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, where there's rain, comes forth life.
Oh my God.
Confucius say. Hey, I did hear a great thing this week.
What's that?
I was watching Star Wars. And,
Which one? This is going to say a lot about you, Phil.
I know
Which
it
Star
will.
Wars?
I was watching the most recent one.
Okay.
And Yoda actually says, he goes, failure is the great teacher. The great teacher, failure is.
Failure is, yeah.
Hey.
Yoda is in the most recent Star Wars?
He is. As a ghost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No one ever dies.
Nope.
Ever.
Nope.
Okay. Cool.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving forward.
All right. So, want to go out and thank Boxstar for being our sponsor.
Absolutely. BoxstarApparel.com. Like we said last week, we'll be able to start offering listeners discount codes to their apparel. But if you guys want to go ahead and check them out, BoxstarApparel.com. They got a lot of really good stuff. I know even as of this week, they were outfitting quite a few athletes that were going to different competitions and stuff. And so one really cool thing, one of their sponsored athletes is actually Nick Block, who at the Granite Games qualified for the CrossFit Games. And so they're making some good moves as well. So really good, high quality stuff with a great message. So BoxstarApparel.com.
Love it.
Yep.
Got some great stuff. So today we're going to be talking about habits, right?
Yeah.
And the power of habits. So
Yes.
habits can be good and they can be bad.
That's true. They can
Right?
be. Yes.
So
Yeah.
the first thing I think about though when we were kind of talking about this was like habits. Like I think about addiction. Was kind of like the first thing that kind of came to my head.
Yeah.
And so habit kind of has that negative connotation. I feel like definitely in the world right now, and especially like the youth.
Yeah, I think that it has habits can have a negative connotation even if they're positive. So you can have negative habits, which, like you said, a lot of times are imposed upon youth, upon young people of like, well, they just have this addictive habit or that addictive habit or whatever. But even when we start talking about positive habits, they almost seem like boundaries or restrictions or like disciplines that aren't fun. Like habit is never connected to being fun. And I think what we want to do is paint a picture of habits really leading more towards like freedom than boundaries and more towards like fun than like boredom or restriction, because like the right kind of habits, like implied in the right kind of ways, lead to being the version of yourself that you want to be. And so yeah, I think that it's super useful. I also think that it's really useful to talk about habits because I don't remember which scholar or which philosopher it was that said you are what you repeatedly do. But so therefore you are a result of your habit. And so like you do become the things that you do over and over and over and over again. But what we believe is that it's possible to rewrite that. So for the longest time, maybe you were this because you continued to do this, because you are what you repeatedly do. But what we do believe is that you have the opportunity on a daily basis to begin to rewrite that story. And so that's what I think we want to press into today for the most part.
So it's like a big Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
Right?
Shake it.
Shake it.
Just shake it.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's a quote by John Bytheway, and he talks about, do you see life as fence posts or do you see them as guardrails? Are they keeping you away from doing something fun, like you said, or are they guardrails protecting you and keeping you being able to keep on with your choices?
Yeah. I think that's really cool too. Like one of my favorite quotes that has been used in a lot of times it's been used in a number of different environments for me. But what we want to do as leaders, and really I think what we want to do for even ourselves, is not build walls around goals, but to dig wells. And so if you think about that as a metaphor, in order to keep things in and to keep things contained, a lot of times people think, well, I'm going to build a wall around this stuff. Whereas really the best way to do that is to build a well that keeps it there, like organically. So instead of barriers and walls that restrict, you create a well that brings life, because people want to be close to what is alive and what gives them life. And so I think that's the same thing, is like you want to create habits that dig deep wells in your life that give you life, that bring you life, rather than like creating these walls and boundaries that just keep you like safe, I guess. And so we want to break that mentality that like positive habits are restrictive and negative habits are unbreakable. And so I think that's what we want to talk about today. Ultimately, this idea of moving forward every day, getting closer to the version of yourself that you want to be, is a daily action step. But there's a quote by someone in something I read somewhere, and I think it was just a blog post by one of the authors that I read, and he just said, "Nothing works unless you do." And so we have a lot of good intentions with the whole always forward thing. We have a lot of good intentions with creating personal core values and creating personal vision for our life, but it's not going to work unless you work. And that doesn't mean you have to get it all right in one day, but nothing works unless you do. And so these habits are just the implementation of the things you need to do every day to move forward, really, for the most part. So, yeah.
Love it. So there's really 3 daily habits, right? That you can power yourself, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
And so let's kind of go over those.
Okay.
And so can you kind of break down just real quick kind of all 3, and then we'll kind of touch on all those topics.
Okay, yeah. So that for me, a couple of years ago, I started to get really frustrated because I recognized the desire to like improve, to get better. I also took a bird's eye, the 10,000 foot view of I don't know if a bird flies 10,000 feet, but whatever.
Jumped out of an airplane.
A 10,000 foot view of my life and saw, holy cow, there's a lot of stuff I want to fix. There's a lot of stuff I want to do. There's a lot of stuff I want to be good at. There's a lot of stuff I want to get better at. There's a lot of stuff I'm bad at. And so I started to get really overwhelmed. And so I think I did what everyone who has ambition does, and you make a list. You're like, okay, well, it's pretty simple. In order to become who I want to be tomorrow, I'm going to do these 420 things, and I'm going to do nothing wrong. And then I'll be good. Like, I'll be well on my way to being that version of myself that I want to do. I will somehow create 8 extra hours in the day, and I'll take the Elon Musk approach to things, which is I'll just never sleep, and that'll be good for me, and I'll just keep plugging away at everything, and I'll get it all right, and that works for like 20 seconds. Until you get either totally blown out or you drop the ball one time. Because there's no opportunity and there's no margin for failure when you do that. It's like the New Year's resolution approach to things. There is no margin for failure because you set an unrealistic expectation. So I started to try to like rewrite that process in my head of how do I, at the end of the day, look back on the day as successful. So this kind of ties into the always forward thing. So I have literally an app on my phone. It's just like a task list app. And if we could design our own app, that'd be awesome one day.
That'd be awesome.
But I just have a task list app on my phone, and I put categories in it. And so I just call it the Daily Forward in my phone. And so I have those 3 categories: mind, body, spirit. And so instead of quantifying success by completing a massive checklist every day, I want to quantify success by honestly evaluating my day at the end of the day and going, did I move something forward? Did I move the needle on learning something today, on making myself better today in this way or better today in this way? And so there are other categories in there, but the primary 3 being to be your holistic, healthy self. I believe that I need to move forward in 3 areas every day. I need to feed well 3 areas every day, being my mind, my spirit or soul, and then my body. And so that's kind of the purpose of the whole like 3 categories. And I guess to be like really clear, this is very personal. Like there's not a lot in this that has to do with interpersonal relationships or how to be a better businessman or how to be a better leader, how to be a better like husband. There's not a lot of interpersonal. This is very personal. So
It's like JP on JP.
right, yeah.
Looking in
How
the
do
mirror.
how do you improve? So like this, so obviously there are interpersonal ways you want to move forward every day as well, but these are the ones that are very much how do you pursue the best version of yourself every day. So yeah, so I think for me it worked to break it down in those three categories, and just to be honest, it's working. It's not perfect, so I'm still like ironing things out into how you measure success. But that really is the whole thing: is how do you make it measurable? Like how do you make moving forward measurable in ways that are actually realistic and not, well, I got to chalk today up to a loss because I didn't do all the stuff right, you know? So this is kind of my approach for it.
Well, I love like kind of what you said, right? Like you have to make it measurable.
Yeah.
It's funny, I texted Jameson about doing something in a couple weekends, and he and Lou asked me, how long is it going to take to get there? And we were talking about two totally different states.
Yeah. What did you say, Hartford?
Hartford, yeah.
It's like, Phil wants to go to Hartford, Connecticut? That is so far.
And then Lou was kind of like, how long is it going to take there? So I sent him a screenshot of how long it takes to get to Hartford, Tennessee from here.
Yeah, it's much closer.
And but when you have a map and you know how to get there, then you know where you're going, how to get there, and the steps how to get there. Kind of like ties in with this, right? It's
for sure.
It's a direct correlation. So let's kind of talk about sharpening your mind.
Okay.
So, actually, before that, let's kind of talk about habits, right?
Okay.
On average, it takes 7 days to make a habit. Okay. 3 to 7, really, is that kind of like time. It's like when you're going to the gym, if you go for 3 days, you're kind of like, wow, I accomplished
You start
something.
to feel the results.
Exactly, yeah. And this kind of goes with anything, right? Like you're reading a book. You are, in my eyes, doing prayers, doing self-evaluations, doing these things. And if you do it 3 times, you're going to like, oh, okay, I'm catching on here, right? Yeah. But it takes a lot longer to break bad habits, putting yourself down.
Yeah, like 30 days, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 21 to 30 days. It's kind of like that 3 to 7, then 21 to 30. And so it's a lot longer to break a habit than to make a habit.
I think that's really cool, too, because in my mind, the way that... Because really, owning a gym, being a fitness coach, being a CrossFit coach, working with people in any way, you have the responsibility to obviously guide and lead people. And so when somebody comes into the gym and they have a lot of bad habits, it doesn't really, like, they're probably aware of those already. It doesn't really help to point them out. Like we can say, all right, well, you need to get control of your nutrition. You need to stop smoking. You need to whatever. Like there's a lot of bad habits that you have that you need to kick. They're probably already aware of those. But I think even the correlation between the length of time it takes to form a good habit and break a bad habit is a really good representation of what we need to be talking about. Because we can tell them what they shouldn't do, but I think what works is to take up more space by telling them what is better to do. Like people have enough to focus on that's negative, even in and of themselves. So give them the positive, side of the story instead. So, hey, if you will do this for the next 7 days, like you will feel so much better. That is just organically going to replace their bad habit over time. So I think that's those statistics line up, I think, relatively with what our content of conversation needs to be. Like, how do we encourage people to move forward? Point them to what's better. Don't just hammer them for what's bad.
Yeah. Well, it's parenting. Parenting goes,
I would not know, but yeah.
So much with that. So it's like the old adage, you can't lead a horse to water. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
But you know what you can do? You can salt his oats, make him really thirsty. Right? But you keep giving people encouragement.
Yeah, right.
And they'll eventually drink the water.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so let's kind of talk about sharpening your mind. Like, how did you kind of start that process? How does that process work for you? And then we'll kind of deepen that a little bit.
Yeah, I guess as a disclaimer, with all three of these areas, they can be, like I said, they're very personalized to, I think they work for everyone. I think they can be personalized and customized to the individual. So everybody has a brain, right? So it's important to sharpen it. It's important to do that. And so, but the ways that it's done for different people can look obviously very unique and very different. Obviously, a way that can be done on a daily basis is to read. growing up, I didn't read a lot. I started reading. I was started to be forced to be read throughout school, and I didn't like the stuff I was forced to read. And I didn't really get passionate about reading until like halfway through college, honestly. And then I started reading the right kind of books and the right kind of stuff. And I'm not like a fantasy novel guy. I like movies, but I don't want to spend time reading like a lot of fiction, you know? And so I started reading the right kind of books for me, and I started to learn. And so I guess just to be clear, like reading doesn't always coincide with learning. Like it just doesn't, because you can waste a lot of time reading the same way that you can waste a lot of time with other forms of entertainment. So if your action step to sharpening your mind every day is to read, like you shouldn't read a fantasy novel. Like it's read something that causes you to really, really like push the limits on what you know. So really what I mean by sharpen your mind is learn something. Like learn new stuff every day. Like learn and sharpen or reinforce something you already know with more information, or maybe like learn the contrast of what you believe, because that's going to help you sharpen your belief more. And so like it's shoring up your understanding of stuff on a constant basis through constant learning. And so like there's Henry Ford has a quote that says, anyone who stops learning is old, either at 24 or at 80. And I think that like that's so valuable, is just this idea that like learning is your way forward. And you can stop learning and you can stagnate, but then like we talked about last week, like there is no standing still. So if you stop learning, you're regressing, like you're moving backwards. And so for me, sharpening your mind is learn something new. Like your mind is a muscle, train it. Your mind is a tool, so you want to sharpen it. Your mind, if you want to go as far as like looking at it metaphorically as a sword, like nobody wants to fight with a dull sword, right? So sharpen it every day. So sharpen your mind in some form or fashion. For me, like reading stuff, reading challenging things is really useful. So by just different authors, by philosophers, by, most of the guys that I read are dead. Like all the dead guys seem to know more than the guys who are alive. So a lot of old stuff. Read history, like read biographies. That's been so useful for me, is just reading different biographies of different guys in the past, different leaders and just thinkers of the past. And so that's been super cool. And you also don't have to agree with everything you read. I think that's a big part of it, is like when somebody reads something, they're like, well, guess I got to change everything. Maybe not. Maybe you just got to read something that caused you to reinforce the fact that you don't agree with that. That's okay. You've still trained the muscle that way. So I think there are a lot of different ways you can sharpen your mind. I think learning through reading and ingesting information is the best way to do it. But whatever works for you works for you. So just train the muscle, sharpen the mind.
I love, I'm a big sports guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, so like I have a book by, I can't remember, but the last book I read was by Tony Dungy.
Okay.
And he talks about his faith and moving from when his son died, and then kind of growing from that and applying the things that he had kind of learned in life and football and coaching and helping people along, and then he learned that he couldn't help himself, right? And like you said, but it's learning even from people's experiences. It's reading that and then applying it to your own life. And then it's also conversation, I feel like a lot of times too. Me and my wife will have a conversation, and I'll learn something. Right. Because maybe she's learned something that she can share with me. So we kind of have like a nightly thing where we talk.
That's a really good way to, I think, sharpen your mind, is just through conversation. But like just be intentional about what you're talking about. Like learn from other people. Sit down with somebody who is older and wiser than you and listen. Like I feel like I haven't done enough of that. Like I feel like I end up in a lot of conversations with people every day where I do most of the talking because they're asking me stuff. And it's really refreshing to sit down and just say, I don't have an agenda here. Like just talk.
Let's just conversate.
Yeah, just talk and tell me, like, you know, I've gotten to know an older gentleman that goes to our church who is really successful in his field, and was a coach and a businessman and just a leader, and just being able to hear stuff from him, like just talk, like is a way to sharpen your mind for sure. So I think like reading, yes, ingesting that information that way for sure. But then, yeah, like you said, I think a way to sharpen your mind every day is talk to people, like talk to people who will sharpen you. Debate with people, even like learn to disagree respectfully and kindly.
And the respect thing is the big part there. You don't have to be like, Jameson, you're wrong.
Yeah.
JP, come on.
You're an idiot. Yeah. No. And maybe they are, but you don't have to tell them. Like, so for sure, I think that like no one knows how to disagree kindly anymore. And so that either leads you to be hostile or quiet. And so I think that's totally a way to sharpen your mind is through that every day. And I think it's just that idea of like, of just learning, man. Like, the more you know, the better. What was it? Is it Reading Rainbow from PBS? It was like
the more you know.
The more you know.
Yeah.
So
you're exactly right, though.
yeah. So or the quote from Dr. Seuss that says what is it? The more that you know. What is it? I don't know. Like the more you read, the more you know. But then he says, the more you know, the more places you'll go. And so like. I think everybody wants to go places, whether that be like metaphorically or in success in life or relationships or practically. You want to go places. Like the more you know, the more places you'll go. And so like know more every day. End of the day, knowing more than you knew when you started it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's always moving always forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's kind of stop right here. We're going to do a hot take.
Okay, what are we doing today?
I got a good one.
Okay.
Hey, fruit on pizza.
No. I'm not in. I'm just
No?
not into it. No.
Me either.
I don't like my fruit to be hot.
Ooh, okay.
I don't want it to be.
So like we're talking like ice cold or like
just like so I like cooked, steamed. I just want it to be like natural. So if it's like cooked by the sun, okay, that's fine. But I don't want like baked fruit. I also don't like cobblers.
Okay, I was just about to ask that.
I know. I just like, it's just not the way it was supposed to be. I also hate my vegetables cooked. So there's that. Like, okay,
I
green
feel bad
beans,
for your wife.
Green
Raw
beans,
broccoli?
obviously. Raw broccoli, though.
Oh.
Do not steam me broccoli.
Ooh.
That's gross. So, yeah.
I feel bad for your wife.
So I'm definitely a no on the fruit on the
Fruit on
pizza.
pizza. Me too.
So
let us know, everybody, what you think.
Yeah.
A lot of people say pineapple on pizza. Right?
Yeah, Leslie does like pineapple on pizza. I hate it. Not into it.
Agree to disagree, right?
Yeah, disagree kindly.
Perfect. So let's kind of keep on. So the next section is renewing your spirit.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Like, and this could be your spirit. Could be taken a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So what is the difference?
It's
between,
raining, by the way.
It is raining, by the way.
If you guys hear that.
What is the difference between renewing your mind
Yeah.
and your spirit? Because some people kind of get those
Right.
mixed up.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Okay, so for the sake of understanding that maybe some of the people listening to the podcast, hopefully, aren't religious or aren't Christians, I would still encourage you to recognize that you have a spirit and that you have a soul. And so C.S. Lewis has a quote that I think makes a really, really good argument for this. So like if you're not, you have faith in something. So everybody has faith in something. You believe something. But if your faith is not rooted and founded in like God as creator and as manager over the universe, then I would still encourage you to recognize that you have a spirit and you have a soul. And I think C.S. Lewis challenges that thought process in a lot of ways for the people who believe that they don't. And so he says, if I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for something out of this world. And so I think that's such a good argument, because if you have lived long enough, which you don't have to have lived super long to have lived long enough to know that no matter what you try, it never works. Like no matter what you try to fill you physically, like it's never enough. Like as human beings, we try to fill ourselves with things, with people, with activities, with experience, with whatever, with tangible things. And it's never enough. It works for a while. There are people who I talk to that are like, man, why would I need anything else? I'm so happy right now. And I'm like, okay, like I'll talk to you again in a year and we'll see what happens. And so, yeah. And so like, and I'm not obviously knocking any of that stuff. Like all of that stuff was created for us to enjoy.
And it's okay to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to. If you don't, you're missing the entire point. But like, it is also understanding that there is something deeper. There is something that exists that you cannot see, that you cannot touch, that you're going, there is a longing in here for more. And that's really what I'm talking about feeding every day. And I think if I'm approaching it from the perspective of like trying to share my faith with somebody, I think that's the best argument, is just going, try it. and find out, like recognize the fact that one day you're probably going to end up angry, empty, depressed, whatever. And that's because you've recognized that all this other stuff that you've tried to fill yourself with didn't work. And so I just think that like I want to challenge that in people to go like there is something more to feed in you. And so that's what I mean by, I guess, renewing your spirit, feeding your soul, really, for the most part. And so I guess that's really the difference between the mind and the spirit. The mind is something that you are given as a tool, while the soul is something that's like that exists almost outside of you, that's intangible, that's not really like within your ability to...
You can't just touch it.
Yeah.
You can't grab it. You can't manipulate it.
Right. I guess you can't really touch your brain either, but you know what I mean. So like, it's just this idea that there is something more, that like more exists, and there are so many various ways to engage it. And so like, I guess for me, there are practices of faith, like what, in Christianity would be called like habits of holiness. And those are the kind of things that are important to do every day. And so for me, a way to renew my spirit is, again, to read. For me, it's to read Scripture. It's to read Scripture-based content that's written by other guys who know way more, or ladies that know way more than I know. But that's not where it stops. So renewing your spirit, from my perspective, that's where the interpersonal stuff comes into play. Because you experience so much, like soul to soul, with other people whenever you're vulnerable with them, that like that's where real life can be found. And so I think you can renew your spirit through more information, through content, through ingesting that content in that feeds that part of you that goes like, okay, this is about something more than just earth or earthly things. I think you can do it through relationships, through experiencing like the beauty of creation through someone else. And the depth of that. I think a way that it works for me, and I know this isn't the case for everybody, but I feel like really, and this is like showing all of my cards as being like highly emotional and like very whatever artistic. But like I am the most alive, I think, whenever I experience like actual nature creation. And that's not to be like, yeah, I'm super outdoorsy. I like to, rock climb and stuff. That's not what I mean. Like I just mean just like looking at what is created. I mean, it's like
gazing upon the beauty.
Yeah, it's just like fascinating, really, and it's finding that in very minuscule things. And so, I pity people that like look up at the sky and don't recognize like a lot of wonder, and their soul doesn't come alive when they do it. Or the people who in our area in East Tennessee like lack to recognize what we have access to. Like if you just go and stand in the mountains, like go and stand in a field. For me, like honestly, one of the most effective ways to renew my soul, to feed my like soul and spirit every day, is at our house. Like we have this like back porch area, and if I just go sit out there and I look into my backyard, like the sun comes through the trees and at early in the morning, and it's just like, this is amazing. Like, and I pity people that lack the ability to recognize like the beauty in that. But there is something in you that comes alive whenever you recognize the life and beauty in other created things, and that same thing exists inside of you. And so when you look around and you see the world being its best self, like being the most like wondrous version of itself it was created to be, it almost challenges something in you to go, I want to be that version of myself today too. And I don't know if that sounds weird, but like for me, that is a way to renew my spirit. That's a way to renew my soul. And so it's certainly tied to faith, certainly tied to like ingesting that kind of content, but also can be done, I think, renewing my spirit through experiencing stuff from other people and through nature as well. And so, yeah, I would just like encourage people to understand, like, if you're doing a really good job renewing your mind and having other like really good disciplines, but you're still like going, there's something more, there's something more, there's something more. And like, this is probably it. Like, you're probably missing the intangible. You're probably missing the unseen. And so just challenging that in people to go like that exists. Don't neglect that really, really vital part every day.
That's, I can remember a time where I felt alone in a crowded room.
Yeah.
And everybody will go through that.
Yeah.
At some point, and then you may go through it multiple times.
Yeah.
And so
life is long.
Life is long.
Somehow Hopefully. It's long and short at the same time.
Yeah. So the kind of the way that I was thinking about these thoughts and I was thinking about renewing spirit is making deposits into a cloud-based account. You know, everybody has phones now, and you know the cloud is where you can access it anywhere. And if you're making deposits in a cloud-based account, that means you can take withdrawals.
Yeah.
If you never put money in the account or you never make deposits, when you need to take a withdrawal, you get a
negative.
You get a negative. It's an overcharge.
Yeah.
Well, then you have to pay that overcharge back, right? And it's usually like double the price of what you've taken out.
Right. You like overdraft by like 2 cents and they charge you $45.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the way I view it, right? Like renewing your spirit and doing all these acts, right? Because you have to do something in order to put deposits in the account.
Right.
And so that's kind of how the way I saw it was like, you keep making deposits in these accounts and you'll be able to take those withdrawals and they'll be there whenever you need them.
Right. Especially because I would imagine that a lot of people who are listening to this, and I know for us, we do a lot of like serving, giving, and like not from like this, we're so noble and sacrificial.
Exactly.
But like just the nature of our work in every capacity is outflowing. Like you're giving of yourself in some capacity. Any leader does that. Anyone in charge of anything does that. Like, and I imagine that a lot of people, if you're listening to a podcast, you probably have ambition to do that, like to be the best version of yourself for the sake of the people and the things around you. And if you're empty, I mean, it's like the most basic thing. Like you can't give from nothing. If you start giving from nothing, you start to blow all of your circuits and it's not going to last. And so like that was really the motivation for me of going, I have absolutely, like, I got nothing. I have nothing left. I'm just like giving out of this, like this totally empty place and it's not healthy anymore. And so I got to focus on these things now to, build that back up. So definitely.
Love it. So last one, beating your body, which CrossFit is great for.
So good.
Plug for CrossFit right here.
Yeah.
So how does beating your body really affect the rest of everything else?
You can't disconnect it. It's all connected. Like
you can't just come in and do CrossFit and then leave?
You not without the other two, I don't think. But you also can't do the other two and not come in and do CrossFit.
Exactly.
So, I mean, obviously, we're going to refer to CrossFit as the way to beat your body because there is no better way.
For a well-rounded.
For sure.
I'll say that. I did bodybuilding for a long time. I did weightlifting, powerlifting kind of stuff, and like HIIT training, and for a well-rounded, for doing something that mentally prepares me for things, but also helps me beat my body, there's nothing else that has ever been like it.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know a lot about CrossFit, we're probably going to talk about just the generalities of fitness in our next episode. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the methodology of CrossFit, what fitness is, how to be fit, all that kind of stuff. And so we'll hit more on that. And that's not really what we mean when we say beat your body. I don't mean be fit. It's helpful to be fit because everything in life gets a little bit easier when you're more capable and healthier. But when I mean beat your body, that can be done in so many different ways. But the big picture of it is like your flesh, like your body itself, and its like desire to be lazy at times, its desire to just like be lethargic doesn't get to be in charge. Like you tell your body what to do, it doesn't tell you what to do. That clearly has relative implications for everybody. Like that's going to be different for everyone because there are going to be some specific limitations that some people have. So that's why I don't think beating your body every day means the exact same thing for everybody. Because what is hard for you may not be hard for me. Like it may be really easy. At this point, it's easy for us to come in and do CrossFit every day because we look forward to it. It's something fun. Now, it could be really hard for someone else to come in and do that. That's the majority of our clients. That's why when they come in here, we have to be really excited they're here because they have not been thinking about, I'm so excited to go train today.
They didn't go to bed going,
I
can't wait till that next WOD.
Yeah, I cannot wait till tomorrow's training. It's going to be so fun. We're going to do some unilateral work. Wow. Or like, I get to train my abs tomorrow.
Yes.
That's going to be so good. Or on like the very rare days that we like do bicep curls. Those are always exciting because we never do them. So
always.
It's like, that's not what people are thinking. And so what's hard for them may be easy for us. And so beating your body is just going, I'm not going to be a slave like to what my body tells me. I'm going to be in charge. And that has implications in everything because a lot of times when you're trying to sharpen your mind, you don't want to. but you're going to train yourself to do it anyways. A lot of times when you don't want to feed your soul and recognize the fact that that's really important because you'd rather just do something like more empty or lethargic or whatever, like you're going to do it anyways because you're in charge. Like you're not a slave to yourself in that way. And so beating your body has way more to do with just overcoming yourself every day. So that can look a few different ways. For some people, that looks like when you go to bed and when you wake up. Like it could be really, really hard for some people to wake up early. So beating your body for that situation is you're going to start waking up earlier, or you're going to start going to bed earlier, or
you're not going to turn the alarm off 5 times.
Right, you're not going to hit snooze a bunch of times, or like you're going to get more control over your nutrition urges, like the cravings that you have. You're going to get more control over it, and you're going to learn to say no to some of those things. I think for me, working out and for training is one of the most effective ways to do it, because what you have the opportunity to do when you come in and you train a method similar to CrossFit is you get to basically walk in the room and go, this is going to be the hardest thing I do today. I have control over that. Like I need that. I need to walk into the gym every day and go, regardless of what happens today, I can make this the hardest thing. And I can do that, and that's so helpful. Like if I walk out of this gym having poured out, having given the maximum effort that I can in this, it's going to hurt. It's not going to feel good. It's going to feel good later, but in the moment, it's going to cause a lot of pretty significant discomfort. But then it's going to equip me better for the rest of the day. I'm going to recognize that, okay, if I could do that whenever everything in my body and my willpower was screaming, don't do that, then I'm going to learn to say no to other things outside the gym, or I'm going to learn to have the power to embrace things that are hard outside of the gym. And so beating your body every day is just saying, you know what? My urges of any kind aren't in charge. I get to be in charge. And it's imperfect. You can't do it perfectly every day, which is kind of why we implemented this process of what does it mean just to take small steps? How do you end the day going, mind, body, spirit? I did something. I moved the needle in some way. And some days you're going to feel like a champion, and other days you're going to have a really hard time finding the success. And other days you're not going to find it because you didn't do it. And that's okay too, because we learn how to fail forwards in those ways. But yeah, like beating your body is an inseparable part of it, because if you can't do that, then most likely you can't sharpen your mind, you can't renew your spirit. So it's all connected. You can't remove them. So
yeah, I like what you're talking about. You have to kind of read down some notes here. You have to empty the gas tank. Yeah. Right. You have to empty that gas tank in order to refill it. What happens to gas if it sits in a gas tank and it never gets used?
I don't know what happens.
It eventually won't be able to run the car. Right. Okay. It'll separate. Right. The oil will separate in it, and then it'll just in essence goes bad. Okay. Right. So if you're not lighting your lamp, if you're not renewing and pouring that oil back in your lamp, and then lighting it, letting it burn, burning it all the way out, and then refilling it, you'll eventually get to where you can't use it anymore. And so that's like what I kind of thought about was like serving others, right? When I think about beating my body, was like, okay, I want to be able to come over to your house and help you do something, right? If I don't beat my body, I don't do things, I don't get up, and I don't do things for others, then eventually I'm going to be like, well, man, I feel lazy. Yeah. Right? And you kind of talked about like serving others, right? Is a huge key thing.
Yeah, and that's a really debilitating state to be in, of going, I know the version of myself that I want to be, and I'm so far from being capable of that. And that's like the most frustrating thing, is being so far from the version of yourself that you'd like to be that you feel like it's hopeless. And so that's like how we started this episode, is we've got to break that mentality that your bad habits are unbreakable and that your good habits are boring restrictions, and say, these are the daily things, these 3 areas. You take a step in these 3 areas every day, and I promise you within 7 days, you will be closer to it. Yeah. Also at the end of 7 days, probably more baggage from more failures that you've experienced, but still further along. Like you're gonna get, I really do think that like the reality of life that we live is the further down the road that you move, the more tired you're going to become at times, the heavier you're going to become at times, like the more weighty the stuff you're carrying is going to become at times, but you're still moving forward, and that is better than going backwards and revisiting the same stuff all over again. And so like these three things are the way that we want to say, take those positive steps every single day. And so for me, I have the task list. Like if you have an iPhone, you can use the Notes app, you can use the Reminders app, and you can just like your own daily forward. What does that mean? And maybe it is different areas for you. For me, mind, body, spirit, that's how they work. But and then I get other practical ways with that too. Like I'll add like a family like list in there and say like, okay, did I move something forward in family today? Did I move something forward in marriage today? Like I think you have to be a little bit more specific when it comes to business related stuff. Like you can't just be like, was I successful today in business? Yeah.
How can you measure that? But you have to
Right.
think about that. How
Right.
can I measure it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever you're putting down, you
Right.
have to make it measurable.
Right.
If you don't, then
Right.
how do you know you got there?
Yeah.
Or how
And-
do you know you're on your way?
And you have to be honest with yourself. So at the end of the day, on these three descriptions of like, did I sharpen my mind today? If I got to be honest with myself, and to be like, and on the days that I go, okay, did I beat my body today, or did my urges and did my body get the best of me? Like, yeah, like you got to be honest about that. And there are days that maybe you went into the gym and you know you didn't beat your body. Like, you know, yes, I made it into the gym. It's a fallacy to think that that's good enough. It isn't good enough just to get into the gym. That is what leads to frustrated people who see no progress. And so beating your body doesn't mean walking through the doors of your Globo gym. Like, you got to put the work in. So there are days that, yeah, I trained today, but I know that my training got the best of me. I didn't get the best of it. Like I quit on myself in that. And so the same way in every other area. Like, so in these other areas that I try to evaluate, did I move forward in relationships today? Did I
yeah, I
move
was gonna
forward
say.
today in marriage? Like you have to be responsible enough to be honest about that, because for Leslie and I, like our schedules do not lend to, we have these 2 hours set aside to do the exact same thing every single week. Like it's just not the stage of life that we live. And so we have to be way more intentional and way more flexible with the approach and the methods of that. And so sometimes that looks like, all right, we just got home and we're going to sit in the truck for an hour and just talk.
And just talk.
And so like, and we have other people that are like, no, you have to have a date night. And that it's just not going to happen right now. That's not how it's going to work. And I'm not like, if that works for you, then that's fine. But the methods can be different for everybody as long as you're honest about how you measure it. And so like pretending gets you nowhere. Like you don't move forward at all by pretending you're making progress. But being honest about these measurables and then taking these active small steps every day does get you progress. And we celebrate progress over perfection because never going to get to perfection. So, yeah.
Love it. Well, we want to thank the audience for listening to us today and watching us. We're going to be talking about, I want you to talk about what is fitness.
Yeah.
How
That
is
is
it
a-
measured?
That's a big topic.
It's a big
yeah.
topic. And it's kind of I wouldn't say taboo topic, but
Yeah.
it's like,
I'm excited.
a lot of people are like, no. Don't do CrossFit. Don't do this. Don't
Yeah.
do that. Don't do powerlifting. It'll do this.
Right.
You're going to get big muscles, right, to girls. And that's kind of something I want to talk about next time is that viewpoint of it. So
Yeah, and the whole measurable thing. Like CrossFit itself measures fitness in 3 really specific ways. And so it kind of speaks for itself. And obviously we believe in that. And so I think it's going to be really enlightening for a lot of people. And I mean, yeah, we're going to plug and sell CrossFit itself and that methodology and that approach, but also just maybe shed some light on what fitness is so you can learn. If you don't like CrossFit, learn how to implement the reality of what fitness is in your own methods, because there are some inarguable aspects of fitness, and so like take those and implement it into what works for you. So
there's a formula. Just got to use it.
absolutely.
All right. Well, we're out.